In the grim darkness of the far future, ambition is both the spark that drives mortals forward and the curse that damns them to eternity. Few tales illustrate this better than the fate of those who dare to rise as champions of chaos. To outsiders, these warriors appear like gods walking among men, adorned in unholy gifts, surrounded by followers who whisper their names with reverence and terror. Yet behind the power and the glory lies a fate far darker, one woven in deceit, corruption, and the eternal hunger of beings who cannot be satisfied. To understand what happens when you become a chaos champion, we must step into the abyss and trace the journey from mortal warrior to something far more monstrous, and often far less free. Picture a warrior standing upon a battlefield soaked with blood, their armor dented, their lungs burning, their blades slick with gore. This is the moment where legends are forged in Warhammer 40,000, where the desperate clash of survival gives rise to the seeds of ambition. Among the endless ranks of the Chaos Space Marines, traitor legions, and warbands that infest the galaxy, some individuals claw their way above the rest. They fight not only with ferocity but with a willpower that draws the eyes of the dark gods themselves. It is said that every Chaos champion is chosen, not merely self-made. Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, or Slaanesh watch closely for mortals who embody their ideals, whether through bloodshed, cunning, decay, or excess. To rise as a champion is not only to command warriors but to embody a living icon of a god's will. The first change is subtle, almost invisible. A chaos champion is marked, though at first, it may be as simple as a heightened sense of strength, an uncanny resilience, or an unnatural charisma that bends others to their cause. Yet this mark is not a gift without cost. It is a brand, seared into the soul, tying the champion's fate to the whims of beings so vast and alien that they cannot be fully comprehended. From this point onward, their path diverges from that of their comrades. Where others fight for survival or glory, the champion fights under the scrutiny of a god. Every deed weighed, every failure remembered. Imagine the intoxicating lure of it. On the battlefield, the champion feels surges of unnatural vitality. Blows that should shatter bones barely slow them, and their voice carries like thunder over the chaos of war. Their warriors rally around them, believing the dark gods themselves fight at their side. For a time, this is paradise for a warlord. They wield power few can rival, and in the endless wars of the 41st millennium, such power makes the difference between obscurity and eternal infamy. But as with all things tied to chaos, the bill always comes due. To rise as a chaos champion is to begin a perilous game where the prize is apotheosis and the penalty is damnation. The dark gods are fickle, and their rewards are always double-edged. A gift of enhanced strength might twist the flesh into a grotesque mockery of humanity. A blessing of resilience could come with weeping sores that never heal but ooze contagion with every step. What makes this more terrifying is that the champion accepts these gifts willingly. To reject them would be to invite the god's wrath, and in the warp, wrath is annihilation. Yet the champion's journey is not one of blind servitude. Many of them believe themselves to be clever enough to play the game of gods, to accept the power but maintain their will. It is this arrogance that defines them. In truth, even when a champion believes they are manipulating their patron, it is usually the reverse. The chaos gods see every scheme, every betrayal, every whispered thought of rebellion, and still they allow the champion to rise higher. Why? Because a chaos champion is never the end goal. They are bait, set loose to gather followers, spread corruption, and burn the galaxy in their master's name. Contrast this with the life of a loyalist space marine, where a loyalist fights with discipline, duty, and sacrifice. A chaos champion fights with selfish ambition and the promise of personal glory. Loyalists are brothers in arms, bound by their chapter's traditions. Chaos champions are tyrants, their warbands fractious, each warrior serving not from loyalty but fear, awe, or shared greed. This is what makes the champion's position so precarious. They must constantly prove their dominance, For the moment they falter, their underlings will tear them apart and offer their skull to the gods. One of the most chilling aspects of becoming a Chaos Champion is that their life becomes a stage for the Dark Gods' amusement. The gods bestow mutations and gifts, but they also laugh when those gifts twist into curses. A champion might be given wings one day, only for those wings to wither and fall off in battle, leaving them broken in the mud. Another might be granted a voice that compels obedience, only for it to turn into a shrieking wail that drives allies mad. The champion learns quickly that they are not adored. They are a pawn. And yet they cannot stop. They are too far gone, addicted to the power, unable to return to the weakness of their former lives. The battlefield is their proving ground, but it is also their cage. Every victory brings them closer to the Dark God's favor, and every failure inches them toward a fate worse than death. There are only two ultimate outcomes for a Chaos Champion. The first is ascension, to rise as a Daemon Prince, shedding the last vestiges of mortality and becoming a living avatar of their patron. The second is oblivion, to become a chaos spawn, a writhing, mindless beast, consumed by mutations and stripped of all dignity. Between these two extremes lies the razor-thin path the champion walks, knowing every battle, every decision, every betrayal could tip the scales. To outsiders, this might seem like a fool's gamble. Why risk such torment for the mere chance of godhood? But here lies the genius of chaos. It appeals to those who cannot bear mediocrity, those whose hunger for power outweighs their fear of damnation. And in the galaxy of Warhammer 40,000, where survival is fleeting and hope is a lie, the promise of becoming more than mortal is irresistible. As the champion raises their weapon over the broken bodies of their enemies, as they roar their defiance into the void, they know one truth above all others. There is no turning back. Once marked, once chosen, once elevated, they are forever bound to chaos. And in that binding lies both their glory and their doom. The life of a Chaos Champion is never static. Power in the service of the Dark Gods is always in flux, always contested, always balanced on a blade's edge. Once the first blessings are received and the warband begins to grow around them, the champion enters a new phase of existence. One that demands not only brute strength but cunning, charisma, and unrelenting willpower. For while the Chaos Gods may elevate, it is the mortal followers who must be led, and they are as treacherous as the warp itself. Warbands are strange beasts. They are not structured like the rigid chapters of the Adeptus Astartes or the disciplined regiments of the Astra Militarum. They are shifting conglomerations of marauders, traitor marines, heretics, cultists, mutants, and mercenaries. Their cohesion relies on the iron fist of their leader. A Chaos Champion must rule with a combination of awe and terror, rewarding loyalty with gifts of plunder and punishing dissent with brutal spectacle. To falter even once is to risk revolt. Every follower secretly dreams of either replacing the champion or betraying them for favor with the gods. This creates a paradox. The champion must inspire both devotion and fear, all while knowing every set of eyes that kneels before them is also waiting for weakness. Imagine the daily reality of such a life. Every interaction is a test of dominance. When a cultist bows, the champion must decide: reward their zeal with words of recognition or silence them with cruelty to remind the others of their place. When a fellow Chaos Marine challenges an order, it cannot be ignored. A duel, a public execution, or an act of overwhelming power must reinforce the hierarchy. This is not leadership as mortals know it. It is survival through constant displays of superiority. To rule among the damned is to be the most dangerous predator in a den of wolves. And yet, there is an allure to it. The champion is not merely a tyrant but a symbol. To their followers, they are proof that the Dark Gods are real, active, and rewarding. Each victory, each mutation, each whispered prophecy fulfilled strengthens their cult of personality. They are no longer just a warrior, they are a conduit between mortal and divine. In this sense, They wield a kind of power greater than any imperial lord commander or planetary governor. Where the Imperium rules through bureaucracy and faith in the distant emperor, the champion rules through immediate, visceral evidence of the god's power. But such power is never free of scrutiny. The dark gods do not elevate a champion and then leave them to rule unchallenged. Their gaze is constant, and their amusement is boundless. Each god has their own demands. Khorne demands blood, endless and unrelenting. A champion under his mark must wage war constantly, proving their strength in rivers of gore. Tzeentch requires schemes, lies, and the careful manipulation of fate. His champions must be as much manipulators as warriors, twisting both allies and enemies into serving his labyrinthine plans. Nurgle craves endurance and suffering, requiring his champions to embrace disease, rot, and decay until they embody his gifts. And Slaanesh seeks excess in all forms, pain and pleasure intertwined until they are indistinguishable, driving the champion into ever greater acts of hedonistic indulgence. Here lies one of the greatest torments of being a chaos champion. One must not only lead mortals but also continuously satisfy the expectations of an inhuman patron. Fail to offer enough skulls, and Khorne's favor will wane. Fail to weave schemes, and Tzeentch's gifts will wither. Fail to embrace pestilence, and Nurgle's blessings may twist into unbearable plagues. Fail to indulge fully, and Slaanesh's touch can sour into agony without ecstasy. This dual burden of mortal rule and divine servitude makes the champion's life a never-ending struggle to remain worthy in both realms. Contrast this with their earlier existence. Once, perhaps, the champion was a simple soldier, fighting alongside comrades, driven by orders or instinct. Now, they are a nexus of conflicting pressures. Their warband depends on them for direction, yet the gods demand they chase ever more extreme acts of devotion. To fail one side is to collapse. To fail both is to perish. It is no wonder that champions often become increasingly erratic, their decisions shaped as much by paranoia as strategy. The line between inspired leadership and madness blurs until they are indistinguishable. Consider also the psychological toll. A chaos champion lives with the knowledge that they are both favored and disposable. The gods can strip them of blessings as easily as they bestow them. Their followers can turn at the first sign of weakness. Every victory feels like a reprieve, every setback like the beginning of a spiral toward damnation. And yet, for many, this constant pressure is intoxicating. To live without challenge is death. To live as the focus of gods and mortals alike is a kind of twisted immortality, even if it ends in destruction. On the battlefield, this existence manifests in terrifying ways. The champion fights not as a soldier but as a living idol. Their presence warps the morale of both friend and foe. Enemies see them and despair, believing no mortal can withstand such unholy might. Allies see them and fight with fanatical devotion, knowing their lives feed into a narrative of divine destiny. The champion becomes both general and mascot, strategist and berserker. When they stride through fire and gunfire, their warband follows, convinced that victory is assured because their leader cannot be denied. Yet for all this, the champion knows that every battle is a test. Each swing of their blade, each display of power, each word of command is weighed by the dark gods. The warp is not patient. Favor must be continually earned, and the cost rises with every gift received. The more powerful the champion becomes, the more they must sacrifice to maintain that power. The price is often paid in blood, betrayal, and the slow erosion of their humanity. And herein lies the greatest irony. To become a chaos champion is to embrace the illusion of freedom while shackling oneself to the whims of gods more capricious than any mortal tyrant. The champion believes they are rising above the Imperium, rejecting its oppressive chains, but in truth, they have exchanged one form of servitude for another. The Emperor demands obedience, yes, but the dark gods demand everything: mind, body, soul, and future. The champion may stride taller than kings, but they walk on a leash that grows tighter with every step. Still, the allure remains irresistible. Even knowing the risks, even feeling the leash, the champion cannot turn back. For the power is real, the adulation tangible, the ecstasy undeniable. To be at the center of this storm is to live more in a single year than most mortals do in a lifetime. The champion's existence is not safe, not stable, but it is glorious in a way that mere survival can never match. That is why mortals and Astartes alike pursue this path despite the doom it promises. They would rather burn brightly and briefly than fade into obscurity. As the champion stands over the corpses of their rivals, their warband chanting their name, the truth is clear. They are caught in a cycle that will either end in apotheosis or damnation. But until that final moment comes, they will fight, they will conquer, and they will revel in the storm of chaos. For what else is left, once you have tasted the attention of the gods? As a chaos champion grows in stature, their life becomes a constant escalation of extremes. Every victory feeds their legend, every sacrifice deepens their bond with the warp, and every decision carries consequences that ripple across both the material realm and the immaterium. It is here, in this stage of their journey, that the champion begins to glimpse the true stakes of their path. For while power grows, so too does the scrutiny of both their followers and their god. And beneath the exhilaration lies the gnawing awareness that failure does not merely mean death, it means obliteration of self, consumed by the very powers that raised them. The battlefield remains their proving ground, but now it is no longer enough to simply win. They must win spectacularly. A mere victory is forgettable. The gods crave theater. A slaughter that paints rivers crimson, a deceit so elegant it reshapes destinies, a plague so virulent it topples cities, or an act of decadence so extreme it echoes across entire sectors. These are the kinds of victories that sustain a champion's rise. They are no longer judged as warriors but as avatars, embodiments of divine will. Their campaigns become rituals, each battle a sacrament offered to their patron. This is why chaos warbands so often act with reckless abandon. The champion must provide not just conquest but spectacle. Yet this demand for spectacle comes at a cost. In their pursuit of ever grander victories, the champion often pushes their forces beyond reason. Entire warbands are hurled into suicidal assaults, not because they make tactical sense but because the display will please a god. Cultists are sacrificed by the thousands in rites that may or may not yield results. Their deaths little more than currency in the champion's desperate quest for favor. Even fellow Chaos Space Marines, once brothers in arms, may be expended as pawns, their lives traded for fleeting blessings. This ruthless calculus breeds resentment, but the champion cannot relent. To slow down, to appear hesitant, is to invite suspicion, from allies, rivals, and their god alike. In this crucible of endless escalation, paranoia becomes the champion's constant companion. Rivals emerge from every shadow. A lieutenant who once knelt with loyalty may begin to gather their own following, whispering promises of greater rewards. Other champions, sensing weakness, may move to challenge them in open combat, eager to seize their warband and their patron's attention. Even allies from other warbands cannot be trusted, for chaos knows no true friendship. Every pact is temporary, every alliance destined to end in betrayal. The champion learns to see treachery everywhere, because more often than not, treachery is indeed there. And the gods, they encourage it. Rivalry, betrayal, and bloodshed amuse them. The champion's constant struggle is not a flaw of the system but the system itself. The dark gods revel in the chaos of their servants turning on each other. For every act of betrayal, every murder, every usurpation generates more emotion, more corruption, more warp energy. To the champion, this reality is maddening, but to the gods, it is delicious. The champion may rage at being manipulated, but deep down, they know they are complicit. Every time they betray, they participate in the same cycle that may one day destroy them. There is, however, one intoxicating hope that keeps champions moving forward despite the paranoia and the constant risk. The promise of ascension. The stories of demon princes are whispered among the warbands like holy scripture. Mortals who rose so high in the gods' favor that they transcended flesh itself, shedding mortality to become immortal avatars of chaos. These figures loom large in the imagination of every champion. They are proof that the struggle has a purpose, that the endless sacrifices and betrayals can lead to something more. The thought of wings sprouting from their back, of their voice booming with warp-born authority, of ruling not just a warband but entire star systems as a godlike being. This dream sustains the champion through even the darkest moments. But for every tale of ascension, there are countless others of damnation. For each demon prince, there are thousands of champions who fell into chaos spawnhood, their bodies writhing into grotesque monstrosities, their minds shattered into incoherence. These were warriors once feared and revered, reduced to gibbering beasts that their own followers hunt for sport. This fate is the ultimate humiliation, and it hangs over every champion like a guillotine. They know that at any moment, their patron may tire of them, twisting their blessings into curses and casting them aside. To continue the path is to gamble with the most precious stake of all, identity itself. This dichotomy, ascension or oblivion, defines the psychology of the Chaos Champion. It fuels their recklessness, their cruelty, and their ambition. Knowing that only the most extreme deeds will be rewarded, they throw themselves into ever greater acts of atrocity. If they must gamble, they will gamble big. Better to burn brightly and risk everything than to fade into obscurity and be forgotten by both gods and mortals. This desperation shapes their every action, driving them to commit horrors that even other servants of chaos may balk at. It is not enough to simply serve. They must serve spectacularly. And yet, in the quiet moments, if such things even exist in their lives, the champion must grapple with the realization that they are not masters of their fate. They may think they are guiding their warband, outmaneuvering rivals, or winning the favor of their god. But in truth, every step they take is within a labyrinth designed by powers beyond comprehension. The gods see not just the present but infinite branching futures, and every decision the champion makes may be one already anticipated. The idea that free will exists in this equation is, at best, an illusion. Still, the champion clings to it, for without the belief that they are shaping their own destiny, despair would swallow them whole. Contrast this existence with the Imperium once more, and the difference is stark. In the Imperium, even the most ambitious warrior knows their limits. A captain may lead a company, a chapter master may lead 1,000 Astartes, but all still bend the knee to the Emperor. Their lives are rigid, defined, and predictable. A Chaos Champion, however, lives without limits. They may rise from nothing to lead armies larger than imperial crusades. They may carve their names into the stars, unbound by rules or traditions. And while this freedom comes with doom, it is still freedom of a kind that no imperial could ever dream of. This contrast is what draws so many into chaos, despite the risks. Ultimately, the champion's life in this phase is a paradox of power and vulnerability. They stride across worlds like demigods, yet they are never more than a single misstep away from annihilation. Their warband chants their name, yet half of them secretly plan betrayal. Their god bestows blessings, yet any day those blessings could turn to curses. To live as a Chaos Champion is to exist in a state of constant, exhilarating terror, never safe, never secure, but always burning brightly in the eyes of gods and mortals alike. And so they press onward. Every battle fought, every betrayal endured, every scheme enacted is another step along the path, another gamble placed at the feet of their patron. They do not know when their fate will be decided, only that it will come. And when it does, the galaxy will either bow before a new demon prince or laugh as another champion collapses into mindless monstrosity. Until then, the game continues, and the champion fights with the fury of one who knows that their very soul hangs in the balance. The further a Chaos champion climbs, the more their existence ceases to resemble anything mortal. By this stage, they are no longer just warriors or leaders. They are myths given flesh. Entire sectors whisper their name in dread. Imperial commanders issue orders to avoid direct conflict with them, recognizing that their mere presence on the battlefield can turn the tide of wars. To their followers, they are saints of blasphemy, the embodiment of a god's will. To their enemies, they are nightmares, omens of doom, and avatars of unholy power. But beneath this aura of legend lies a truth that no champion can escape. The higher they climb, the more precarious their footing becomes. Power in the service of chaos is cumulative, but so are the demands it places upon its bearer. Each gift, each blessing, each mutation binds the champion more tightly to their god. The power is intoxicating. Swords that burn with warp fire, armor that heals from mortal wounds, voices that command obedience with a whisper, but the debt grows heavier. The more divine attention a champion receives, the less of themselves remains. It is a slow process of erasure, where personal will is chipped away piece by piece until the champion must ask, am I still myself, or am I simply a vessel for something greater? This question gnaws at many champions, though few dare to voice it. Those who do often spiral into madness. For what is madness in the eyes of chaos but clarity revealed too soon? To realize that one's triumphs were never entirely one's own, that every victory may have been scripted by an unfathomable patron, is to strip away the illusion of autonomy. Some champions embrace this, surrendering fully, becoming zealots whose every thought is dictated by divine will. Others resist, clinging to scraps of individuality, attempting to outwit gods who see across time itself. Both paths are dangerous. The zealot becomes predictable, expendable. The rebel risks annihilation for insolence. And yet, within this razor-thin balance, the champion continues to exist, half puppet, half master. It is at this stage that the champion often attracts the attention of greater entities within the warp. Demons, sensing their rising prominence, approach them with bargains. Some whisper promises of protection, others tempt with forbidden knowledge, still others demand unspeakable offerings in exchange for fleeting boons. The champion must navigate these encounters carefully, for demons are treacherous beyond measure. A single careless oath, a poorly worded agreement, can bind them for eternity. Yet refusing outright risks offending beings who are extensions of their patron. Thus, the champion learns to walk in circles of deception and double-dealing, a diplomat in a realm where every word is a blade. At the same time, the material galaxy closes in. The Imperium does not ignore threats of this magnitude. Inquisitors begin to whisper the champion's name as a priority target. Space Marine chapters are dispatched on crusades to eliminate them. Assassins are trained for years with the sole purpose of ending their life. Imperial propaganda paints them as monsters, demons in armor, hoping to inspire resistance among the terrified populace. But the champion, paradoxically, thrives on this attention. Every attempt to kill them, every campaign launched against them, only adds to their legend. They become a symbol of defiance against the Imperium itself, and in the twisted logic of chaos, such infamy is its own form of worship. This creates a feedback loop. The more the Imperium resists them, the more infamous they become. The more infamous they become, the more followers flock to their banner. And the more followers they gain, the greater their offerings to their god. What began as a single warrior's ambition now snowballs into wars that reshape entire sectors. The champion is no longer just a person. They are a force of history, a black hole pulling everything around them into the gravity of their ascension or their destruction. But within this growing vortex lies a danger even more insidious than imperial reprisal: the jealousy of other champions. Chaos does not tolerate equals. Every champion who rises threatens the position of others. Rival warlords plot their downfall, weaving alliances of convenience to strike when least expected. Demons whisper in their rivals' ears, offering aid in exchange for betrayal. Sometimes, entire warbands implode not because of imperial intervention but because the ambitions of two champions collide. This is the reality of chaos. The closer one comes to the summit, the more the summit itself bristles with daggers. For the champion, survival in this environment requires not only martial prowess but paranoia sharpened into an art form. Every ally must be scrutinized, every gift examined for hidden poison, every victory second-guessed for traps. Trust becomes an alien concept. They may fight alongside other champions in grand campaigns, but always with one eye watching for the inevitable betrayal. And yet, this very instability is what fuels chaos. The dark gods delight in such rivalries, for the violence and treachery they spawn feed the warp as surely as prayer. Still, amidst the storm of betrayal and warfare, the dream of apotheosis grows stronger. The champion feels it. Every gift, every victory, every ritual drawing them closer to the precipice. They begin to see omens in the warp, hints that their god's gaze lingers on them longer than before. Their body may warp further, sprouting wings, horns, or armor fused with their very flesh. Their voice may echo with unnatural resonance, their shadow flickering with strange shapes. These are signs, tokens of favor, promises that ascension may be near. The champion clings to them, interpreting every mutation as a step toward glory rather than the abyss of spawnhood. But the truth is cruel. The line between Daemon Prince and Chaos Spawn is vanishingly thin, and the champion never knows which side they stand on. Every mutation could be the beginning of apotheosis, or the first step into eternal monstrosity. The gods rarely make their intentions clear. They allow their champions to stew in uncertainty, knowing that the desperation it breeds drives them to even greater acts of devotion. The champion's life becomes a frantic race against doom, each day spent trying to prove, beyond all doubt, that they are worthy of immortality. In these final stages, the champion is both terrifying and tragic. Terrifying, because their power has grown so immense that they rival the mightiest lords of the Imperium. Tragic, because despite their strength, their fate is not in their hands. They may command fleets, topple worlds, even kill Astartes by the dozens, but at the end of the day, their destiny lies in the whims of beings who view them as toys. All their ambition, all their cruelty, all their victories are but fuel for a game they cannot win. And yet, this is what makes the tale of the Chaos Champion so compelling. They embody the essence of chaos itself. Ambition unchecked, power corrupted, freedom twisted into servitude. They are mortals who dared to defy the universe, who rose higher than anyone had a right to rise, and who paid the price for it. Some will fall into gibbering monstrosity, their names forgotten, their bodies used as cautionary tales. Others will ascend, becoming demon princes, worshipped as gods in their own right. But all share the same truth. The path of the champion is not a straight road but a knife's edge, and every step forward is a gamble with eternity. At the end of the path, when the champion stands upon the knife edge of destiny, the galaxy itself seems to hold its breath. Every scar upon their armor, every follower at their back, every sin they have committed in the name of chaos converges into this final truth. Their fate will either be eternal glory or utter ruin. Few mortals in the history of the galaxy ever stand at such a precipice. Fewer still survive the moment of judgment. The culmination of a champion's journey is never subtle. It comes with fire, with screams, with cataclysm. Perhaps it is on a battlefield where entire regiments collapse beneath their blade. Perhaps it is in the heart of a ritual, where thousands of sacrifices bleed into the warp. Or perhaps it is in the quiet of space, alone upon a flagship's bridge as the warp itself cracks open around them. However it manifests, the moment is unmistakable. The dark gods extend their final verdict, and the champion is either remade in their image or discarded like a broken toy. Ascension is a transformation that defies mortal comprehension. Flesh becomes malleable, reshaped into a form that mirrors the will of the patron. A champion of Khorne may erupt into a towering juggernaut of muscle and brass, their roars echoing like war drums across the warp. One of Tzeentch may dissolve into shimmering light, their body replaced with ever-shifting glyphs and eldritch fire. A servant of Nurgle may swell into a mountain of pestilent vitality, dripping corruption that births new plagues with every breath. And those favored by Slaanesh may become forms so exquisite and terrible that mortals go mad at the sight of them. In that instant, the champion ceases to be immortal. They are a Daemon Prince, immortal, eternal, and unshackled from the decay of time. For those who achieve this state, the galaxy opens in new ways. They are no longer leaders of warbands but lords of legions. Demons bow to them, mortals worship them, and even other champions tremble in their presence. They stride through both the material and immaterial realms with equal ease, shaping worlds and destinies according to their god's will. To become a Daemon Prince is to be freed from the endless gamble, to no longer fear the curse of spawnhood. It is the endgame of ambition, the realization of every promise whispered by the warp. But it is also the final surrender of self. A Daemon Prince may carry the memories of their mortal life, but their individuality is consumed by their role as a god's eternal instrument. They have won, yes, but they have also been claimed forever. And what of those who fail? Their end is far crueler. One moment, they stand on the brink of triumph, believing themselves chosen. The next, their body convulses, tearing itself apart in a symphony of uncontrolled mutation. Limbs sprout uncontrollably, mouths gibber from their flesh, eyes roll and multiply until they collapse into a writhing parody of life. Their mind disintegrates under the weight of the warp, leaving nothing but animalistic hunger. What was once a champion of chaos becomes a chaos spawn, a fate far worse than death. Followers scatter or turn on them in disgust, offering their broken body as sacrifice to the gods they failed to please. No name, no legacy, no memory remains, only a lesson in the cost of hubris. This duality, apotheosis or annihilation, is what makes the story of every Chaos champion both horrifying and fascinating. Each one is a tragedy in waiting, a drama played out before the eyes of gods who care nothing for the outcome. They are driven by ambition, trapped by devotion, consumed by power, and ultimately judged by beings who value them only as fuel. And yet, it is precisely this danger that makes the path so alluring. Mortals crave meaning, and in the endless grind of the 41st millennium, the promise of standing apart, of becoming more, is irresistible. Even if the end is doom, the journey offers a kind of glory denied to the countless billions who live and die in obscurity. So, what happens when you become a Chaos champion? You rise beyond your station, commanding armies and wielding powers that make you seem like a god among mortals. You live with a fire that burns brighter than any Imperial's disciplined loyalty, brighter than any Xeno's ancient traditions. But you also live with a leash around your soul, pulled tight by masters who delight in both your triumphs and your failures. You gamble with eternity, knowing the odds are stacked against you, and still you throw the dice again and again, because the alternative, anonymity, mediocrity, irrelevance, is unbearable. You either ascend and are lost to the warp as a Daemon Prince, or you fall and are twisted into a spawn. There is no middle ground, no safe path, no quiet ending. And yet, for those who choose it, for those who dare, there is no regret. To become a Chaos champion is to defy the galaxy itself, to spit in the face of the Emperor, to burn so brightly that even the gods turn their gaze upon you. It is the most dangerous gamble a mortal can make, and the most intoxicating. For in the grim darkness of the far future, where there is only war, perhaps the only true immortality lies in daring to reach for the impossible, even if it consumes you in the end.